Most people believe life is showing them the truth, that what they see, hear, and feel is objective reality. But what if that's the greatest illusion of all? What if everything around you, every relationship, opportunity, and obstacle, is not revealing the truth but revealing you? Neville Goddard taught that reality is reflective, that the world isn't a cold observer of your life, but a living mirror of your assumptions. Think about that. The arguments you keep having, the patterns that repeat, the coincidences that follow you, they're not random. They're messages from your own consciousness, whispering, "This is what you've been assuming." The moment you grasp this, everything changes. You stop trying to fix the mirror and start transforming the image within. Because here's the paradox. The world doesn't respond to truth, it responds to belief. And when you change your assumption, reality bends to meet it. That's the real power Neville revealed. Not the power to manipulate life, but to understand it. To see that the truth you've been chasing has been inside you all along. This isn't just philosophy, it's practice. The next time you look around and see something you don't like, remember, it's not the world judging you, it's the world reflecting you. Change within, and the reflection will follow. Most people wake up believing the world decides how their day will go, but Neville Goddard's teachings reveal a deeper truth. Reality isn't objective, it's reflective. Everything you see is an echo of what you assume to be true. Every conversation, every delay, every unexpected moment mirrors the inner state you're living from. The world isn't showing you truth, it's showing you you. It's like standing before a mirror that never argues. It simply reflects your belief about yourself and life. Imagine someone who constantly repeats, "Nothing ever works out for me." Soon enough, that phrase becomes a spell shaping their experiences. The reality mirror doesn't judge, it obeys. The law of assumption ensures that what you hold within, you meet without. Change the story and the scene must change. It's not magic, it's alignment. When you assume the wish fulfilled, the script of your life naturally rewrites itself. Neville said the feeling is the secret, and he meant it literally. Your emotional tone announces to the universe the character you've chosen to play. Walk around feeling unworthy, and life will cast people to prove you right. But walk as if you already are what you desire to be, and the reflection bends to match your confidence. Reality, being reflective, cannot resist the vibration of a new identity. Think of it this way. If your camera lens is dirty, the picture stays blurry no matter how clean the window is. That's how inner states work. People change houses, jobs, or relationships, but keep the same inner distortion. Conscious creation starts when you clean the lens, not the scenery. Once the perception clears, life naturally sharpens into beauty and flow. Every reaction you have to the world is really a reaction to yourself. When someone irritates you, they're revealing an inner belief you've been rehearsing unconsciously. It's not an attack, it's information. Life is constantly whispering, "This is what you think you are." The moment you stop fighting the reflection and start understanding it, you begin to reclaim your power. There's peace in realizing the universe isn't punishing or testing you, it's mirroring you. The inner world is the blueprint, the outer world is the construction. Hold the state of peace and you'll witness peaceful experiences. Hold fear and life faithfully reproduces that script. The mirror has no choice. It's law. The law of assumption never fails. It only follows. Picture yourself scowling in front of a mirror, waiting for it to smile first. That's what most people do emotionally. They want life to improve before they feel better. But Neville's wisdom flips it. You must feel it first, live in the end, and then the reflection shifts. The secret isn't controlling the mirror, it's transforming the image within. This realization can sting at first because it removes excuses, but it's the most freeing truth you'll ever discover. If reality is reflective, then you are never a victim of circumstance. You are the cause in motion. You hold the pen that writes the next scene, change the assumption, and the movie starts changing itself. Start paying attention to your daily words and self-talk. Those casual phrases like, "That's just how life is," quietly create your reality loop. Conscious creation begins when you interrupt that loop and write a new line. That's how it was, not how it is. Each new assumption begins as a whisper, but soon it becomes your new normal. The world doesn't reveal what's real. It reveals what you believe is real. Every scene, every face, every event is an echo of your inner world. When you finally grasp that truth, you stop fighting appearances and start mastering reflection. And that's where Neville's next revelation begins. the understanding that life itself is simply yourself pushed out. Everything in your world is an extension of your inner conversations. Neville Goddard's teachings remind us that life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. The people you meet, the way they treat you, even the random events that unfold, are all shaped by what you've assumed to be true about yourself and others. It's not personal, it's projection. The outer world can only echo the inner dialogue you've been entertaining all along. Think of it like a radio station. You can't tune into a frequency you aren't broadcasting. When you assume rejection, you vibrate with it, and those who cross your path unconsciously pick up that signal. When you assume confidence, warmth, or worthiness, life rearranges to reflect that too. Reality is not an accident. It's a mirror tuned to your dominant assumption. So many people live reacting to others, trying to change their behavior through words or control. But Neville's insight flips that entire dynamic. You don't change people by convincing them. You change them by changing your assumption about them. Assume they respect you, and soon they will. Assume they love you, and you'll notice small, unmistakable proofs that they always did. When you stop trying to fix the world and start adjusting your self-concept, power returns to your hands. It's humbling at first to realize that the disrespect, indifference, or love you receive are all reflections of your assumptions. Yet this awareness is liberation, because the same law that mirrored old beliefs will just as faithfully mirror new ones once you adopt them. Picture someone who constantly expects to be overlooked. Even in a crowd, they shrink, waiting to be passed by. The mirror obeys and gives them exactly what they expect. But once they start assuming, I am seen, I am heard, I am valued, the world has no choice but to echo that conviction. The outer world is simply an obedient shadow of the inner identity. Neville often said, everyone is you pushed out. It means that every person plays the role you unconsciously assign to them. When you shift your assumption, they shift their script, sometimes instantly, sometimes subtly. You're not manipulating others. You're changing the state from which you perceive them. The new perception automatically births a new relationship. This principle goes beyond relationships. It governs every area of life. Money, health, opportunities, all respond to your assumptions. Believe that life supports you, and support begins to show up in forms you couldn't plan. Assume the opposite, and even good things find ways to slip through your fingers. The mirror doesn't filter, it just reflects your frequency. Once you grasp this, judgment begins to fade. You stop blaming others for what they reflect and start thanking them for revealing your hidden beliefs. Each person becomes a walking feedback system, showing you what part of yourself still seeks healing or love. Life transforms from a battlefield into a classroom of self-recognition. This is why Neville insisted on inner conversations. What you whisper in your imagination is far more powerful than what you shout into the air. When you assume the wish fulfilled and live in that end, you rewrite the script for everyone involved. The external world simply plays along, unaware they've been recast by your inner certainty. So when you understand that life is yourself pushed out, you stop trying to fix the mirror and start refining the reflection. You realize that every interaction is a message, every face a mirror, every event a clue about your assumptions. And when you grasp this, you begin to see the true nature of cause and effect, where the real source of creation lies within your own consciousness. Most people live believing that life happens from the outside in, that events, luck, and other people shape who they become. But Neville Goddard turned that belief upside down. He revealed that the outer world is never the cause, it's merely the effect. What you see, touch, and experience are reflections of the consciousness you've chosen to occupy. You're not reacting to life. Life is reacting to you. It's like watching a movie and thinking the characters on screen are creating the story. In truth, the film is just light projected from the real within the projector. Consciousness is that projector. The moment you shift the film, the inner assumption, the entire movie changes. The outer world doesn't lead, it follows. Every effect you see has already been born in imagination, yet the human mind is trained to blame. That person hurt me. That job failed me. That situation ruined me. But if the outer world is only effect, then none of those things hold real power. They are simply mirrors reflecting states once accepted as true. The moment you stop assigning cause to circumstances, you stop living as a victim and begin living as a conscious creator. Think of someone constantly worried about money. They assume scarcity as their reality. The bank account, the bills, the rejections, they're not the cause of fear, they're the echo of it. Once the person shifts from fear to faith, from lack to abundance, the same outer symbols begin to rearrange. The reflection follows the belief, not the other way around. That's why Neville urged us to live in the end. When you dwell in the state of already having, the outer world can't help but catch up. The feeling of fulfillment is the seed. The manifestation is the fruit. Trying to change the fruit without touching the seed only leads to exhaustion. True transformation always begins at the level of assumption. It's easy to forget this when challenges arise. When something unwanted appears, the reflex is to fight, fix, or worry. But doing that only reinforces the idea that the outer world has power over you. The wiser response is to pause, turn inward, and ask, what state am I occupying that this is showing up? The moment you change the state, the scene must rewrite itself. Neville used to say, the world is a dead thing. It moves only when you move. This isn't poetic, it's law. Consciousness is the only cause. If you shift your inner dialogue from, why is this happening to me, to, what is this showing me? Life transforms from punishment to revelation. Every delay, every door closed, becomes feedback guiding you toward alignment. Think of consciousness as soil. Whatever seed you plant, faith, fear, love, doubt, it will grow. The harvest outside is simply the visible form of what was nurtured within. If you don't like the crop, don't curse the field, change the seed. This is conscious creation in its simplest form. The world can only echo the thoughts you've made real in imagination. Once this truth sinks in, you stop chasing and start assuming. You stop asking life to change and begin embodying the change yourself. You realize that what you call reality is only the photograph of your previous state of being. The moment you shift inward, the next photograph will show something entirely new. So, the outer world is never cause, it's only the shadow of your consciousness. Treat it as effect, and you regain your power. Because once you stop being hypnotized by appearances, you start directing them. And that's where the next insight unfolds. How the secret to change lies not in fighting the mirror, but in transforming the image within. The greatest trap in life is trying to fix the reflection while ignoring the cause. When people see something they dislike, a problem, an argument, a disappointment, they immediately go into battle mode, trying to rearrange the outer pieces. But Neville Goddard's wisdom is simple and uncompromising. Don't fight the mirror. The outer world is just showing the picture you've accepted within. Change the image, and the reflection must obey. Imagine standing in front of a mirror with a frown, shouting at it to smile. That's exactly what most people do emotionally. They fight circumstances, blame others, or force outcomes, never realizing the reflection has no power of its own. It can't change first. The secret is to go back to the inner cause, the assumption you've been nurturing, and replace it with the one you actually want to live. When something unpleasant appears, the ego wants to react, to prove it wrong, to control it. But the wise understand that appearances are just old reflections catching up to your new self. Fighting them only freezes them in place. Quiet acceptance and inner redirection are far more powerful. You don't need to push the reflection. You just need to assume differently and stay faithful to that new vision. Think of a time you changed your mood completely, maybe from anger to calm, and suddenly everything around you seemed softer. The same people, the same place, but a new feeling. That's how reality shifts. Not because the world obeyed your command, but because it could only reflect the tone you radiated. The mirror bends naturally when the inner light changes direction. Neville taught that imagination creates reality, not reaction. When you see something unwanted, you're not being punished. You're being reminded of what's still alive in consciousness. Instead of resisting it, you can use it as a cue to revise. Close your eyes, enter the scene again in imagination, and see it as you wish it to be. Feel it done. That inner adjustment is the true act of power. Life doesn't require you to wrestle with it. It requires you to understand it. The outer world is feedback, not opposition. If you treat it like an enemy, you stay stuck in resistance. But if you treat it as a teacher, every unwanted scene becomes a doorway to deeper awareness. Change stops being a struggle and becomes a quiet decision of state. It's like editing a film. You wouldn't argue with the scene on screen. You'd go to the editing room and change the reel. That's exactly how conscious creation works. When you alter the image within, the outer projection must realign. The mirror doesn't have free will. It's obedient to your imagination. You can rewrite any scene once you realize you're the one holding the script. This doesn't mean you suppress emotion or pretend everything's fine. It means you acknowledge what you feel, then move beyond it. You're not ignoring reality. You're recognizing its source. The moment you stop reacting and start creating, the mirror begins to shift. You no longer beg for change, you embody it. Over time, this becomes effortless. You stop fearing appearances because you understand their temporary, powerless reflections. Peace replaces panic. You can look directly at chaos and smile, knowing the image will soften as soon as your inner eye changes focus. That's the mastery Neville spoke of, the ability to remain centered even while the old reflection fades. So the next time life shows you something unpleasant, don't fight it. Don't explain it. Don't fix it. Simply go within and imagine anew, because when the inner picture changes, the outer reflection must follow. That's not theory, it's law. And this understanding opens the door to a deeper realization. Your reactions themselves are the proof of what state you're living from. Every moment of life is a silent test, not from the universe, but from your own consciousness. Neville Goddard taught that your reactions are the clearest mirror of the state you're living in. You don't need to guess what assumptions you've accepted. Your emotions tell you instantly. Anger, anxiety, jealousy, these are not enemies but messengers revealing the state you currently occupy. The way you react determines the next scene of your reality. When something unexpected happens, a delay, a rejection, a loss, your first impulse exposes your true assumption. If you panic, it means you're still living from fear. But if you stay calm and inwardly certain, it means your faith has deep roots. You're no longer trying to control the mirror. You trust the reflection will catch up. That calm isn't weakness, it's mastery. Neville said that feeling is the secret because it's the language creation understands. The universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to states. When you react with peace, you announce to reality that you've already won. You no longer need proof because you're living from fulfillment, not towards it. That emotional posture rewrites the scene without effort. Think of an actor who forgets their lines on stage. A nervous actor panics and breaks the illusion. A skilled one stays in character and improvises naturally. Life is the same stage. When you stay in state, when you keep embodying the end despite appearances, the performance continues seamlessly. Your reaction keeps the story aligned with your chosen identity. Every negative reaction is a rehearsal of the old story. Every peaceful response is the birth of the new one. The moment you choose peace over panic, you collapse an entire chain of old assumptions. You stop energizing the version of you that struggles and begin embodying the version that already knows. That single shift can rewrite an entire lifetime of habits. It's not about pretending to be calm, it's about trusting the unseen cause. When you know reality is reflective, you stop fearing appearances. You realize they're just delayed photographs of past assumptions. The real creative act is not reacting to what you see, but persisting in what you've decided to feel. That's the essence of living in the end. Peace is not passive, it's creative. It's the stillness that allows the new state to solidify. When you remain unshaken, the mirror eventually must yield. It's like planting a seed. If you keep digging it up to check progress, you interrupt growth. But when you trust the process, the sprout emerges effortlessly. Inner calm is faith in motion. Reactions are habits of identity. You can tell which version of yourself is active by how quickly you're thrown off balance. The old you reacts automatically. The new you pauses, breathes, and chooses again. That pause is power. It's the gap where creation happens. In that instant, you can rewrite the entire trajectory of your reality. Over time, you begin to notice that life feels gentler. Situations that once triggered you now pass by quietly. People respond differently, opportunities open easily, and peace becomes your default frequency. You've changed your inner climate and the outer weather must adjust. That's not coincidence. It's law in motion. So each reaction is a reflection. Each emotion, a clue. Every moment you choose faith over fear, you're telling the universe which version of reality to keep playing. And that's where the true art begins. Learning to see the world not as something to fix, but as a living feedback system constantly revealing your assumptions. Neville Goddard often said that life is a great teacher, disguised as ordinary experience. Every event, every person, every moment is feedback, an echo of what you've been assuming within. When you start seeing reality as a mirror instead of a mystery, confusion disappears. You stop asking, "And why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this showing me about me?" That single shift turns frustration into revelation. Each encounter you have, pleasant or painful, is like a letter sent from your own consciousness. The words may come from another person's mouth, but the message is written by your assumptions. If someone doubts you, It might reveal where you've doubted yourself. If someone appreciates you, it reflects the self-worth you've allowed to grow. The world doesn't speak randomly. It speaks fluently in the language of your inner state. When you begin treating reality as feedback, life stops being so personal. You no longer see problems, only information. A delay becomes a sign that you're still carrying impatience. A compliment becomes a mirror of your growing confidence. Every reflection, good or bad, is a chance to refine your consciousness. The feedback isn't punishment, it's precision. This mindset requires humility because it removes blame. It's easier to say, "They're wrong," than to say, "What belief in me attracted this?" But when you take ownership, you reclaim your creative power. You realize that the outer world is simply updating you on what script your inner world is currently playing. It's like checking your reflection before stepping out the door. You make adjustments, not accusations. It's like using a GPS. When it says recalculating, you don't argue with it, you just adjust the route. Life works the same way. If something feels off, it's your inner GPS guiding you to a higher assumption. You don't fight the feedback, you thank it. Every redirection is an invitation to align with your desired state. The universe isn't saying no, it's saying not that vibration. Neville's teachings remind us that this feedback system is always fair. It never lies, it never sleeps, and it never skips steps. You can't fool it with words or fake positivity. It responds only to felt belief. If you truly assume abundance, life will reflect it in ways that feel natural and effortless. If you secretly assume lack, it will echo that too, until you shift within. Once you start noticing patterns, awareness becomes your greatest asset. You'll see how the same themes repeat until you learn their lesson. Maybe it's about self-worth, trust, or patience. Each loop is a mirror asking, "Do you still believe this?" When you finally answer no with conviction, the loop dissolves. Reality updates itself automatically. The beauty of this approach is that you no longer chase signs. You interpret them. You realize the world has always been speaking to you, waiting for you to listen consciously. Coincidences become confirmations. Obstacles become opportunities. Even silence becomes meaningful because you know it's never empty. It's reflection in pause. Soon, you'll start seeing the elegance of it all. Nothing is wasted, nothing random. The moment you assume differently, the feedback begins to soften. People shift, conversations change, doors open where walls once stood. Life feels less like resistance and more like rhythm, because you've learned to dance with your own reflection. So practice seeing the world as a living feedback system. Watch your daily experiences as clues to your state. When something feels off, don't fix the outer, recalibrate the inner, because the moment you change assumption, the mirror sends back a new message. And that's when you start recognizing that even contradictions aren't obstacles. They're simply old reflections fading away. One of the most powerful lessons Neville Goddard ever shared is this: don't let appearances deceive you. When you've assumed a new state and life still looks the same, it doesn't mean nothing's happening. It means the old reflection is still catching up. Reality lags behind consciousness. What you see now is only the echo of who you were, not who you've become. The mirror always takes a moment to update. Think of it like turning a massive ship. It doesn't pivot instantly. When you change direction inwardly, the outer circumstances take time to realign. The key is persistence. Most people give up right before the reflection flips, believing their new assumption isn't working. But it is. It's just that the old picture hasn't fully dissolved yet. The world is slower than imagination. Neville often compared it to planting seeds. You don't dig them up to check if they're growing. You trust the process. The unseen transformation is already underway. Each day you persist in the new assumption, "I am loved, I am prosperous, I am free." You water that seed. Appearances may shout the opposite, but truth whispers beneath them, preparing to bloom. This is where most people fail. They mistake persistence for force. They try to make the outer world comply instead of resting in the knowing that it already has. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is quiet, confident, peaceful. It doesn't need proof. It knows the reflection must follow because that's law. The law of assumption never skips a promise. It only waits for your consistency. Imagine switching radio stations. When you turn the dial, static appears before the new song comes through clearly. That static is the in-between, old assumptions fading out while new ones tune in. The worst mistake is to turn the knob back to the old frequency out of impatience. Stay tuned to your desire, even through the noise. The clear signal always comes. When life contradicts your desire, it's not a test, it's confirmation. The contradiction means the old vibration is being replaced. You're witnessing the last flickers of the past, dissolving under the power of your new belief. Don't fight it. Smile at it. Say, "You're just the old story leaving." That small act of awareness keeps you grounded in truth. Every fulfilled manifestation once looked impossible. Before the new reality stabilizes, the old one often intensifies, trying to prove it still exists. Don't be fooled. Like a movie fading to the next scene, the tension peaks before the cut. Hold your assumptions steady. The new frame is already forming behind the curtain. Neville reminded his students, "You do not persist against something. You persist for something." That's the key. You're not battling appearances. You're remaining faithful to your chosen end. Every time you reaffirm your new state despite the evidence, you shorten the distance between imagination and manifestation. The mirror has no choice but to align. So when contradictions appear, don't interpret them as failure. See them as evidence of movement. The old reflection is simply dissolving because the new image has taken root. Reality must obey consciousness. It has no will of its own. Your only task is to persist in faith until the mirror clears completely. And once it does, something beautiful happens. You begin to notice the subtle signs of transformation. People treat you differently. Situations soften. Coincidences start connecting like breadcrumbs from your future self. These are not random. They are proof that your new assumption has begun to crystallize into form. Change doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Often it begins quietly, like dawn light slipping through the curtains. Neville Goddard explained that when you occupy a new state of consciousness, the first signs of transformation are subtle. People begin responding to you differently without knowing why. Old tensions dissolve without confrontation. Life starts to flow with a softness that feels almost supernatural, but it's not magic, it's reflection. One day, someone who used to ignore you suddenly greets you warmly. A problem that felt stuck begins to resolve itself. You notice new opportunities emerging where doors once closed. These are not coincidences. They're echoes of your new assumption reaching the outer world. The inner movie has changed, and the outer screen is simply catching up. Synchronicities begin to appear everywhere. The right person calls. A book falls off the shelf with the perfect message. A random conversation answers a question you silently asked. These aren't signs to beg for. They're confirmations of your state. When you truly live in the end, the world rearranges itself to fit that version of you. Reality, being reflective, has no choice. The beauty of this process is its effortlessness. You're not forcing the change, you're allowing it. When you assume the wish fulfilled, your energy shifts, and everyone around you feels it. They don't know why they're drawn to you or why they suddenly see you differently, but they're responding to the new frequency you're radiating. Consciousness communicates beyond words. Neville used to say that the outer world is clothed in time. That means there's always a delay between assumption and appearance. So when these small shifts begin, don't dismiss them as coincidence. They're the bridge of incidents, the natural, invisible path connecting your inner decision to its physical manifestation. The bridge may look ordinary, but it's divine choreography. You might notice that resistance feels lighter too. Situations that once triggered anxiety now feel manageable. It's not that the world changed overnight, it's that you did. The reflection had no choice but to follow. You begin to walk through life with a quiet knowing. Everything is unfolding perfectly. That certainty itself becomes your protection. What used to feel like effort now feels like flow. You stop chasing and start magnetizing. Instead of trying to convince life to cooperate, you find life eagerly collaborating with you. The more you trust this process, the faster the reflection adjusts. Faith turns from a concept into an atmosphere that surrounds you. Even challenges begin to carry a different energy. They no longer scare you, they inform you. You see contrast as fine-tuning rather than opposition. Each event, whether pleasant or painful, is now part of your alignment. That's the true sign of transformation. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of peace regardless of them. And soon, you begin to experience what Neville called naturalness. The new state doesn't feel like something you're trying to sustain. It feels like who you've always been. The reflection no longer surprises you because it finally matches your self-concept. The mirror is no longer a mystery. It's an affirmation. When you reach that point, the world begins to feel alive, responsive. intelligent, intimate. It's as though reality itself is in conversation with you, nodding in agreement with every assumption you hold true. And this realization leads to something even deeper. You no longer seek validation from the world because you finally understand it was never judging you, it was always you. There comes a moment on this journey when you stop looking outward for proof. Neville Goddard called this deep embodiment, the point where you no longer chase signs or validation because you know. You've tested the law, seen the mirror move, and felt the shift within. The world no longer intimidates you because you recognize it for what it is, your own consciousness made visible. It's not your judge, it's your echo. Most people spend their lives trying to convince the reflection to approve of them. They search for likes, praise, attention, and success as evidence of worth. But when you truly understand that reality is reflective, you see how backward that is. The reflection can't give you value. It can only confirm the value you've already assumed. Seek approval within, and the mirror will applaud automatically. Neville said that when you occupy a new state, you must dwell there naturally, not conditionally. That means you don't say, "I'll believe it when I see it." You say, "I'll see it because I believe it." The moment you embody that truth, validation becomes irrelevant. You're no longer asking life to agree with you. You're simply expressing what you've already decided to be true. Think about how a confident person walks into a room. They don't wait for permission to feel confident. They carry it. And because they carry it, the room responds accordingly. That's how creation works. You stop performing for approval and start radiating identity. The world bends to the vibration of certainty. You're not waiting to be chosen. You realize you already are. When you stop seeking validation, something powerful happens. Peace replaces pressure. You no longer measure your progress by external metrics, money, followers, or recognition. Those things may come, but they're no longer your source of worth. You've shifted from proving to being, and ironically, that detachment makes manifestation easier because it aligns you with abundance rather than lack. Deep embodiment feels quiet. It's not loud confidence or forced affirmations. It's calm knowing. It's the voice that says, "I don't need the world to show me. I am the cause." You become steady regardless of conditions. Praise doesn't inflate you, and criticism doesn't shake you. The mirror loses its control because you've taken back authorship of your reflection. This level of inner mastery makes you magnetic. People can sense when you're no longer performing for approval. They feel safe around you, drawn to your grounded presence. You don't need to demand respect. It naturally arises because you respect yourself. The world begins to organize around your self-recognition, mirroring your quiet confidence in endless ways. Neville often emphasized that detachment is not indifference, it's faith. You're not ignoring the world, you're simply refusing to let it define you. You've reversed the hierarchy. The inner now commands the outer. When something good appears, you smile and say, "Of course." When something challenging appears, you smile and say, "This too will shift." Either way, you stay centered. At this stage, manifestation feels less like creation and more like remembrance. You realize you're not forcing something into existence, you're uncovering what's always been yours. The outer proof becomes secondary because the inner feeling is already complete. The reflection becomes predictable in the most beautiful way. It can only mirror your wholeness. When you live like this, validation transforms into quiet gratitude. You don't need applause to know you're aligned. You walk with an inner certainty that life will always mirror your truth because it cannot do otherwise. And that awareness naturally leads to Neville's ultimate teaching, the understanding that the world doesn't reveal truth, it reveals you. Neville Goddard's most profound truth is also his simplest. The world shows you you. Every face, every scene, every circumstance is a mirror reflecting your inner state. You don't see life as it is. You see it as you are. This means the truth you experience is not absolute. It's personal, fluid, and responsive to your assumptions. Reality bends, not to your wishes, but to your conviction. When you grasp this, blame evaporates. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of life and begin to recognize yourself as its author. If the world feels hostile, it's echoing an inner belief in hostility. If it feels kind, it's mirroring kindness you've assumed as natural. The reflection is neutral. It only amplifies what you hold as true. Change the assumption and the image reconfigures instantly. Neville often said, "Change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live." It's not philosophy, it's mechanics. Consciousness is the only reality. The outer world doesn't need fixing, it needs updating. When you assume a new identity, life begins rearranging itself to support that version of you. It's not trying to resist, it's waiting for direction. Think of reality like water. It takes the shape of the container you give it. Your assumption is the container. If you pour in doubt, you'll see evidence of uncertainty. If you pour in faith, everything starts flowing in harmony. The world can only reflect the shape of your belief. It doesn't choose, it simply mirrors. This is why imagination is sacred. It's not escapism, it's creation. When you imagine lovingly, you're setting new coordinates for reality to follow. You're saying, this is who I am now, and the universe immediately begins reorganizing itself around that truth. You may not see it at once, but it's already happening behind the scenes. The mirror takes time to reflect the new image clearly, and when it does, it feels effortless. Things fall into place, people appear at the right time, synchronicities multiply. You realize the universe was never against you, it was just matching your previous broadcast. Now that the signal has changed, the reflection gleams brighter. The outer proof becomes secondary, the inner peace becomes proof enough. Changing within doesn't mean forcing positive thoughts. It means dwelling in a new self-concept until it feels normal. Neville called this living in the end. It's not about pretending, it's about accepting. Once the assumption becomes natural, the outer world must align because there's no separation between inner and outer. They're one continuous field of consciousness. You might notice that truth begins to reveal itself through new eyes. The same world now feels different, not because it changed, but because you did. Colors seem richer, people kinder, life more cooperative. It's as if reality was always waiting for your permission to shine. That's the hidden magic of conscious creation. It turns perception into revelation. In this understanding, truth is never outside of you. It's not hidden in books or gurus or signs. It's woven into your assumptions. Whatever you consistently feel to be true becomes your lived reality. The world faithfully echoes it back, not to punish or reward, but to remind you of your own creative authority. So remember this, the world shows you you. Every reflection is an opportunity to choose again. Every moment invites you to assume differently. When you change within, truth appears without, because reality, in its infinite wisdom, always bends, not to chance, but to the one holding the assumption, and that one is you. So now the question becomes, what reflection are you living inside of? When you wake up tomorrow, will you keep reacting to the mirror, or will you finally begin shaping it from within? Neville Goddard didn't teach you to escape reality, he taught you to command it by changing the only thing that ever mattered, your assumption. The world will always show you you. And that's the greatest news you could ever receive, because it means nothing is fixed, nothing is final, and nothing outside of you holds the power. Every new assumption is a doorway to a different reflection. Every shift in consciousness rewrites the script of your life. So look within, choose again, assume the wish fulfilled, live in the end, and let the mirror show you the truth you decide. Because when you remember that imagination creates reality, you stop waiting and start creating. If this message spoke to you, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because here we dive deep into the teachings of Neville Goddard and the art of conscious creation. The reflection you seek starts here, and it starts now.